Hey everyone, my name's Tim Hines, and I'm here today to talk to you about an interesting marketing subject, and that is how we can rethink our channels in a post-digital age. So my presentation is titled, It's Time to Mix It Up. And what I mean by mix it up is what you can do to change what you're doing in your channels, in your marketing channels, to try to stand out, to try to be a little bit more human and be more productive in your marketing. But before we kick things off, I just wanted to introduce myself. So again, my name is Tim Hines, and well, who am I? I'm a professional marketer with nearly 20 years experience, having worked for a variety of different companies in a bunch of different industries, from publishing to ticketing to events to technology, University of Communications, media for business, you name it. I've kind of been around the block a few times. I'm also a consultant, so I try to work with companies who have a deep need of having that unique ability to kind of come in and look at a marketing organization from the inside out and help get them to get their marketing jump started or restarted. I specialize in that specifically. I'm also an author. My book, The Marketing Starter, is available for everyone to check out. You can take a look at that. I'm also a speaker and also a podcaster. You can check out the Marketing Starter podcast, where I interview thought leaders from all over the world around marketing subjects that help them to get things done and to kind of be those marketing pioneers. I'm also a startup founder. A few of the companies on this slide, I actually started. Local Bound, which is a small advertising agency. Curb Ninja is an app for motorcycle parking. Pitch Training Camp was an actual course or class where we taught entrepreneurs how to better pitch their businesses. So I've had my hands in a few things, and I really like to take an entrepreneurial mindset or style to what I do in my marketing. And lastly, I am a marketing evangelist. And so that means that whenever I get a chance to talk about marketing, just like I'm doing right here, I will take that chance. I love to share ideas with other marketers. I love to learn ideas, but more importantly, I love to advocate for marketing wherever I can to make sure that marketing is getting the appreciation that it deserves. And I also love to connect too. So if you guys want to scan the QR code that's here on this slide, please do that. That'll take you to my LinkedIn where we can connect. Would look forward to connecting with you and sharing ideas in the future. So what do I want you guys to learn from this talk? Well, there's a couple of things. Number one is I want you to understand what it means, first of all, to be post-digital. It's kind of a new term. You know, it's one of those things that you might hear in passing or read in an article and go, wow, you know, I'm not really sure what that is. I know the first time I came across it, I wasn't sure. So I was like, oh, I'd love to learn about it, be able to share this with people. So get a grasp on what it means to actually be post-digital. Number two, I want you guys to understand how digital marketing has evolved over time, because in order to know where we're going, it's important to know how we got here. And that digital marketing evolution that has happened over the past 20 so years has been important to get us to where we are today. And then number three, I'd like you guys to get some actual post-digital tactics that you can use today in your marketing. As soon as you're done here with this talk, you can go walk away and start applying those things. But lastly, I want you guys to get excited because, like I said, I'm a marketing evangelist. So anything I can do to help pump people up around marketing and get them excited about doing business again and about making cool things and marketing happen, that's what I'm here to do. So I'm here to be your cheerleader and help you get excited again about marketing. So this is a great quote here from Paul Dow, Accenture CTIO. It says, a post-digital world doesn't mean that digital is over. On the contrary, we're posing a new question. As all organizations develop their digital competency, what will set you apart? And that little part at the end there, what will set you apart, I think is the key to this whole presentation and to understanding what post-digital is. We need to be doing things that set us apart. And the question on everyone's mind might be, well, why should we care about moving into post-digital? Why is there even a movement on this? You know, who's going to lose sleep over this? Well, hopefully you don't lose sleep over it, but there are some things that we need to take a look at. And the number one thing here is that according to a Salesforce study about marketing function and marketing impact, it found that 88% of consumers believe that digital advertising that they see today has little to no impact on their buying decisions. 88% of them. I found that so staggering when I saw that, because I think of myself as a marketer going out and building robust digital ad campaigns. Maybe they're ABM focused, hyper targeted, great messaging, beautiful design, placement. We got it all teed up and it's great, only to find out that 88% of the people we're trying to reach think that that ad has zero to no impact on them. And the question at the end of the day comes down to why. And I think that's what we're going to try to unearth a little bit today in this talk. But my question is, why are we spending all of this money, all of this time, and all of these resources on building campaigns that have weak impact? We have to make them more impactful. So I think we can dig into that a little bit. But the reason that I think, or the number one reason I should say, that I think that these campaigns that we're doing, what's happening in digital today, isn't impactful, is because it's just too damn boring. We are boring our customers, our prospects, our targets, whatever you want to call them. We're boring them to death with our digital advertising today. We're talking too much about ourselves. We're bombarding them over and over and over. Like this digital tolerance has gone through the roof, and we are just not getting through to them anymore. So we have to stop being so damn boring with our digital marketing. You know, I like to think of digital marketing today much like how billboards had become, well, during my lifetime and before. We just drive past them, right? We don't even see them anymore. They're there, sure, granted, they're sticking out, they're huge, they're hard to ignore sometimes, especially the ones that light up and flash and, you know, do all kinds of crazy things. But that doesn't mean they're having an impact. That doesn't mean that I see this save thousands on interest ad here for security service and go, oh my gosh, let me go to their website real quick while I'm driving and punch that in. You know, I think back to the days of when freeways and highways were first built and the side of the road was just clean with no billboards on them whatsoever. People were just driving, and all of a sudden billboards started popping up. It probably almost caused car accidents at that time, right? Because at that time they were impactful, they were distracting, they were big, but we've gotten used to it as a society. And we have since maybe switched more from out of home, which billboards are, right, to digital. And now digital is going the way of the billboard, going the way of the billboard dinosaur, where it is not being impactful anymore. We're seeing so much of it that is just not resonating. And we as buyers, consumers, we don't care. So there are some things that we need to do to try to step that up, to make some changes to be more post-digital. So what the hell is post-digital? You might be asking. No, that's great, Tim, you're talking about all this stuff, but what does it mean at the end of the day? Well, number one, it means that digital is the norm, not the differentiator. So we as marketers or as business people, if you're not a marketer watching this, we have to take a step back and look at what's happening in the world and go, we're not special. We're not unique because we're using digital. This is just what everyone does at this point. So we can't pretend that we're special or we're different because we have a great digital ad campaign going. Anyone can run a great digital ad campaign. Even if you don't have digital marketing people specializing within your company, you can go find contractors that'll help you do just that. So we have to stop pretending that it's a differentiator. It's just normal to have great digital marketing practices. And digital marketing is just marketing today. I'm actually always dumbfounded when I see someone's title that says like digital marketing specialist or director of digital marketing or whatever. It's like, bro, that is literally just marketing. We all need to have some form of digital marketing in our back pocket as marketers today. We can't grow up and go into any sort of marketing anymore where we don't at least know how to jump on Facebook or LinkedIn and run some digital advertising. Am I right? Like those are literally synonymous. Digital marketing, we should just completely just drop the digital. Marketing is not marketing today without digital. Why? Because digital is the norm, right? Third thing here is that our customers are super entitled. I'm sure I'm probably getting a lot of head nods when you hear this. Customers today are used to kind of having the whole bread basket handed to them. They're used to seeing the red carpet rolled out when they're coming into an establishment or they're experiencing a brand, whether that's in person, online, whatever. So you have to think about that they have a certain set of expectations that we're not reaching. And that's why, going back to the previous slides, that's why our digital is having such a low impact. They're entitled, they have high expectations, and they want it when they want it and how they want it. And they want to be marketed to the way that they want to be marketed to. They want to be looked at as a unique individual, as a human being versus a tactical placement, right? It's all about what we can do for our customers at the end of the day, and not necessarily the money that they have in their pockets to buy what we're selling them. They don't want to be sold to. So they have this entitled look to them. And if they are not going to get their expectations met from you, then they will go to another customer because they will recognize it, they will see it, and they will say, well, and they know that digital is not the norm. So what is becoming a differentiator is meeting customer expectations. So if you can meet them and exceed them, then you'll win. And digital distinction itself has dissolved. Whether I'm seeing an ad on mobile or I'm seeing it on a web browser, doesn't really matter to me as a consumer. It's all just, again, the billboards on the freeway. I'm just glossing over, not seeing what is happening. That distinction, it's less impactful too. So obviously it's great to have a good mobile strategy. It's great to have a good desktop strategy when building out your digital, but that distinction of how the customer perceives it doesn't exist anymore. And then here's something that's interesting is that the digital insights that we're driving from activity and what we're learning on the marketing side is actually fueling the business strategy. So I think for the longest time, right, marketing has kind of served the needs or served the goals or served the strategy of the higher positioning in the company, and it's kind of been dictated down. Well, now marketers are becoming more and more on the front lines in this post-digital world because of what we learned in digital, that now we as marketers can go in and say, this is how things should be because this is what we have learned, and we can actually fuel and change the strategy moving up the ladder. So super fascinating there. And then also in that same vein, organizational culture is shifting to better meet the customer needs, because for the longest time, customer success, sales, maybe in-store workers, things like that, those are the people who actually have the pulse on the customer. But now marketing can do that too. And so the entire organizations are changing around, and new departments are being created, new positions within a company, all around with the customer's needs on the forefront of their mind. And again, it's thinking about that customer first. And that really is a core pillar of being post-digital. So the bottom line here is that post-digital is the humanistic approach to solving problems, or AKA marketing, right? Because that's what marketers do. They help to solve problems. So if we can take a more human approach to what we do in marketing, then we will inherently be more post-digital. And so here's this digital evolution thing that I was talking about before. And there's going to be a continued evolution. This is always going to change. But where we started was back in the day in pre-digital. And I actually used to work in pre-digital when I worked for a large media company in Chicago. I supported the advertising sales team for a well-known newspaper there. And in that vein, what they were selling was this post-digital type of experience. And the purpose in pre-digital, the purpose in pre-digital was to create one-way communications, right? It was the ad on the sheet of paper, the ad on the television. It was just going toward the consumer, the buyer. That was it. And the scope of it was just your media management. Where am I buying it? Where is it being placed? Newspaper, trade magazine, you name it. The dimension of insights was just segment definition. So what are the segments that we can go after with this specific either section in the newspaper or a specific magazine targeting men versus women, whatever. Then the insight resources that we use were third-party panels to help understand if the ad was recollected and remembered and was impactful. And the outlook on technology back then was like, I don't need technology. This is the way we've done it. This is status quo. This is working. We're going to continue to do that. And then the way that we measured it was based off of brand awareness. And you got that measurement from those third-party panels. I've actually done those focus groups where you have the two-way mirror type of setup. And they're asking you questions like, did you see this ad? How does the ad make you feel? And that was the only way they could get any insights or any information back from the campaign to know if it actually worked, right? Then we moved into the digital realm. And the main purpose there was to inspire interactive dialogue. So more than just speaking one way, we could actually have a two-way communication with the customer. And so that revolutionized things. We could actually get people to start communicating back. And so then the scope became, okay, well, what do we want to do in our digital / mobile engagement? Are we going to do things a little bit differently on the phone versus on a desktop, whatever? And our dimension of insights became the customer identity and understanding who they are at their core. So that way we could pinpoint where they lived online or offline and identify them and target them. And then the insight resources really kind of became those main campaign metrics that we work with today, right? Click and session activity, form fills, like all of those type of things that we're able to actually look at and understand and go, oh, look at this, the CPC on this was off the charts, out of the water. We did such a good job. So we were actually able to start tracking those KPIs. And the feeling around technology was that tech is going to support our marketing operations across the board. And then the main measurement goal then became campaign results. So we still were obviously focused on brand awareness, but now we could actually look at a specific campaign, set some benchmarks and see if we hit those things and then excel past it. And now we're moving into this post-digital world. And really what that is designed to do at the end of the day is to really meet the customer's needs through a holistic brand experience. And the scope of that is every way that the customer can experience the brand. So think about like, I don't know, a brand like Coca-Cola or something like that. You see their brand in the stores, they have trucks that are being delivered, you see digital advertising for them, they do activate. There's so many different things that the brand does that are both digital and traditional and activation and event and all of these other things mixed together that it kind of becomes this holistic brand experience. And so that becomes the scope of what we're doing in a post-digital world. And the main dimension of insight is now customer motivation. So, we've segmented them, we've understood who they are potentially with their identity. Now it's how motivated are they actually to make a purchase? How motivated are they to actually share a story? How motivated are they to refer someone else to our business? So that motivation insight has become key in the post-digital world. And as far as resources, now we have like this wealth of contextual data. So it's more about the ability to dig one layer deeper and understand that behavioral and why they got to this place and why they did this versus just this is what they did. They just clicked. Like in digital, we can go a step deeper. And then tech is an integral part of the experience development. Like we have to rely on it to help us string everything together in our digital and our post-digital to make sure that we're actually having a good outlook and that we're getting the results that we need. And then the measurement goal, kind of tying it back to a few minutes earlier, is that business impact. Post-digital is changing how businesses actually function. And that is using what we're learning from digital to rebuild the org around that customer's need and drive that experience. So that's kind of the digital evolution. and how it's changed over time. Now, so digital exists to make being human easier, not the other way around. And you would think that's a no-brainer, and obviously since we're human, you'd think it'd be easy to be human, but unfortunately it's actually quite difficult. And Forrester Research actually did a study, and they came up with the 3 rules that are needed for success in post-digital marketing. And the number one thing is to be human. And that is obviously to be personable, build trust, show people that you're like them. When you can have connection, people are going to then trust you and then ultimately see you as a friend and want to buy from you and relate, and obviously be more relatable with your brand. Second is to be helpful, and that's to give help, even if it's free, to your prospects, to your customers, and then drive massive value wherever you possibly can throughout the funnel, all the way up until close, and sometimes even after. I mentioned before that I've worked quite a bit in B2B technology, and I think this is something that companies and especially SaaS platforms have gotten really good at, right? Is creating great pieces of content or offering great tools that can be for free for customers to use. A company that I always think of that does a good job of this is HubSpot. And even me as a marketer, I'll search for best ways of building this type of campaign or whatever. You can search it. And a lot of times HubSpot has a great report or a blog post, or they have a how-to article that they put together, and it's all free. It's free for me to go and get. But when I see that stuff and I use it, I go, wow, that was great of them to share that with me. It was so helpful. So now I have this element of trust. And so when I'm going out looking for services like theirs, they will be one of the first people that I think of. And so it's quite genius actually to be helpful. And I'm not saying obviously to be helpful to hopefully close a sale, which is great, but your main motivation needs to be to put goodness into the world and actually be a better human overall. And then the third thing they said is that you need to also be handy, and that's just being easy to work with. Again, this should be like another no-brainer, but I mean, do you guys want to work with people who are difficult to work with? I mean, I sure don't. When was the last time you went to the DMV? Are you excited about going to the DMV to get your license renewal? Probably not, because they're difficult to work with. Their processes are antiquated. They have all kinds of paperwork, forms you have to fill out, lines you have to wait in, not so nice tellers that are actually helping you process everything. They're not handy at all. Of course, they don't really have much incentive to be, but you do, because you're operating in mostly a free marketplace. And so you have to be handy, be easy to work with, be pleasant, and that will continue to help you be more human. Now, an excellent guide that I've used in the past to help me with this is actually this book called The Marketing Rebellion, and that's by Mark Schaefer. And I've actually interviewed him on my podcast where we talked about this very subject. Very interesting stuff. And in the book, he talks about, he unpacks actually how buyers and customers have rebelled over and over and over since kind of the beginning of marketing and advertising against the stagnant tactics and the things that we do to try to oversell people. And he breaks that down and talks about how people have rebelled against that. So really interesting. And the tagline, or excuse me, the subtitle of his book is actually "The Most Human Company Wins." So I recommend going to pick up his book, which will help you to learn to be a little bit more human in what you're doing in your marketing. And so we're not meeting the customer expectations, right? I mentioned that a little bit ago. And our digital presence mainly is to blame. And so here's a couple of great statistics from that same Salesforce report that I had mentioned before about customer engagement. So 68% of customers expect brands to deliver empathy to them, right? Like that's the expectation. That's what they want. So 68% of customers are saying like, hey, I want you to think how I think. I want you to come into my human experience and get me. Only 37% of those same customers say that they're actually getting it from companies. So that's a huge gap there. And the way that I look at it is I have a personal model that I live by is that gaps are good. And let me tell you what I mean is when a gap exists, that means that there's room for growth and there's room for opportunity. We can come in as marketers and try to close that gap. And the number one way that we can do that is with some human empathy right here, right? Meeting people where they are, getting and understanding their human experience is a big part of their expectation, whether it's a consumer or a business buyer. At the end of the day, the person who's writing you the check is a human. And so you have to be empathetic to them. Another one here is that 66% of customers expect companies to understand their unique needs. So not just being empathetic, which needs assessment could be possibly part of that, but the unique needs and their unique use case. Some of the best SaaS companies that I've worked for or even consulted with have done a great job of even taking maybe their core tool, and if they have a unique use case, trying to manipulate it or tweak it in whatever way that they can to make it fit the specific customer's need. And once they can do that, and once they can kind of pivot on that kind of stuff, may end up with a better product because it was dictated by what the customer needed at the end of the day. And so 66% of customers are expecting that. And then the converse is that only 34%, customers think that only 34% of companies today are actually doing it. So 66% think believe that they expect it, and only 34% of them feel like companies are giving that to them. Again, another big gap that we can come in and help to close. Now, also in that same Salesforce report, they talked about how customers are using multiple different channels and devices and things like that. So it showed that 74% of customers say they've used multiple channels to start and complete a transaction in 2020, which was up from 72% in 2019. And I often think of this kind of when I'm traveling and how I might start a transaction, maybe looking at flights like on a mobile app on my phone, and then ultimately end up making the purchase on my desktop. So I'm using multiple channels to actually do that. And then secondly, 66% of customers are using multiple devices from start to finish. So again, the mobile versus the desktop, the mobile app versus the website. They're all of these things are kind of increasing. They're starting here and they're ending here. They're picking it up this way. They're digesting information in different places. And so using multiple channels and also using multiple devices. I mean, another great example of that is that someone might start a customer service inquiry with you via like a social media channel, right? And then they might also then go to your website and jump on your chat box, or they might actually go and call you to finish the conversation. So multiple channels, multiple devices, and that can all just be in one interaction that a customer is having with you. And those are the things that technology is driving. But those are also the things that are giving us the great insights that we can then use to show that marketing is on the front lines and actually change business behavior for the better and to be more post-digital. And so our top post-digital marketing trends, things that we can start to do today that are going to be more impactful in our digital marketing. So number one is personalization and customer experience. Almost goes without saying. This is something that I think marketing has already done a great job of starting to do. I mean, actually, everybody in the company has really been stepping this up, but focusing on personalization and having a great customer experience. Again, that's that being helpful and handy part that we were talking about a little while ago. Number two, using video content. Now, I know that video is digital. I'm coming to you on a digital platform, but it is so much more human and much more impactful than just having a boring static advertisement or any other message. I mean, think about it this way. Generation Z, who is taking over our workforce, they are addicted to video, especially in short form, our Snapchats, our Instagram stories, things like that. And the way that you're going to reach them and be most impactful with them is with short, concise, sweet video that's going to make an impact. So video content, number 2. Number 3, AI and machine learning. And I'm not going to pretend that I am an expert in artificial intelligence and machine learning in any way. However, if you have great data people that are able to apply these type of technologies to what you're doing in your marketing to really help you dig in and get those new dimension of insights, then these 2 elements are going to help you greatly in building campaigns that are much more impactful and much more human, because you'll actually be able to learn more and have those more impactful type of communications because of these tools that enable that. Second is voice engagement. Podcasts, leaving little voicemail notes are great, but podcasts are also a great way to interact and show the human side of your brand. And you don't have to go out and start your own podcast. That can be a lot of work, but getting your brand or your brand story or a customer featured on another podcast in your industry, that could be a potential way of showing your human side and making a great impact. I know for myself, when I hear someone actually speaking, when I hear their voice, second to video, and you can see them and hear them, but when you can hear their voice and you can kind of get a feel of who they are, and again, it starts to play at your human heartstrings a bit and helps to establish a greater trust than if you were just reading something. B2B influencer marketing is big, and I'm sure we're all familiar with our B2C influencers. We're all on Instagram and social media all day, and I can only stomach as many fashion influencers as I can on Instagram, but there are also those for the B2B side as well. When I was working at a telecommunications company, they actually hired a guy. His name was on social media, his name was Corporate Bro. And they actually hired him to come in, create some content and influence the industry, especially people in the sales arena, Corporate Bro, right? Influence people in the sales arena around the products and services that they had. So B2B influencers are big. And even they could just even be product reviewers at the very least, but there are ways to tap into that influencer market. And that's why, and the reason why influencers are so big and popular is because it shows consumers a human experience that someone is having with a brand or a service. And so if you're able to do that with your services, I would say look into that as well. Number 8 is conversational selling. And so no one, I don't care who you are, wants to be just talked at and sold to. It's all about trying to build a conversation, really asking people, your prospects, your customers, what their needs are. That should be your pitch, is just trying to learn more about them and then see if there's a way of taking a solution, tailoring it to their needs. But having a conversation rather than just a one-way monologue is going to be so much more impactful. And then number 7, visual and interactive content. So again, second to kind of video and stuff, but visual and interactive content are great. I had a client I was working for. They did 3D models of office space. And one of the things that we talked about doing was actually taking a live model and creating a light version of it that prospects and customers could actually play with and use, similar to kind of like a video game on the company website. And that turned out to be an amazing piece of content that actually showed how the product worked and gave people kind of a feel for what it was before they had to sit through a sales demo. So something like that can be really, really great to help tell your story. Account-based marketing, ABM, I think we all know what that is. We've probably been talking about that to death for the past 5 years or so, but anything that we could do to kind of try all these things, tie all these things together to focus our marketing around the account or around the person, as opposed to just kind of blasting it out to a persona, the better. And then connected digital experiences. So the last thing you want to do is have siloed digital experiences, like our mobile app looks and acts like this. Our website functions this way. You want to have those things be seamless, and so that the brand experience is the same on those different platforms. Because why? Well, in the last slide, right, I was just talking about how those in that Salesforce report, how customers are using multiple channels and they're using multiple devices. So you have to have a seamless experience across all of those. Otherwise, you're going to confuse your audience, and they're ultimately not going to have trust, and they're going to get frustrated and bail. And then you want to take your hyper localization beyond just geography. There are so many more things that you can use from a buyer's persona about who they are on like the local level, rather than just what block do they live on. It's like, what block do they live on? What stores are nearby them? Where do they like to shop? Are they part of any meetup groups in their town? There are so many things like that you can actually learn besides just they live in this city. So those are some things that you can take away. And now for the pillars of this new mix, like what are those things that are holding all of this up? Well, number one is brand accountability. And I think this is something that has grown so much in the social media age that we have. The internet, well, I've heard this phrase said a few times, but the internet is written in ink, not pencil, right? So when things happen, even if there's a mean tweet, those things get put on blast. Someone grabs a screenshot of it and there it is. It's out there, right? So your brand is so much more accountable now than it ever was before. And so you need to do things that are going to establish you as a brand leader, to build trust, and ultimately, again, be more human, but own up to your mistakes and recognize that you are flawed. And because you are flawed personally, your company is flawed. And so you have to hold yourself accountable for the things that you do in this world. And if you're able to do that and stay in front of it, then people will respect you and ultimately want to do business with you. Second is the user experience, customer experience, whatever you want to call it, user X, CX, all of those trendy things that they're being called today. You want to focus on that wherever you can. And that doesn't just mean with the product itself, that means with the marketing that you're doing too. Going back to that example of that 3D model thing that I talked about, like we built that to make it easier for people to understand what that product and service actually did. And so it was doing them almost a favor in their learning experience with the company. So whatever you can do to focus on that user experience to make things stand out and just be easy for them to work with, the better. And then you want to drive that tremendous value wherever you possibly can throughout the entire marketing funnel, and never forgetting it all the way to the end, and even beyond if you can. The value of the customer, especially when they're trying to research and learn more about a solution, it's so important to give them something that's going to kind of nurture them along, that they're going to look at and they're going to remember you because you did it. And so creating something of tremendous value that has a long shelf life, that's where content is king at the end of the day. And then lastly, you want to be data-driven in real time. And what I mean by that is, while the campaign is running, you can look at its metrics today and be able to make some tweaks to the audience, to the placements, to whatever you're doing if it's not working. You don't have to wait for the campaign to be over. You can drive your data in real time. Marketing automation has come so far, and you guys can really take some great tools and apply them to your marketing tech stack to be able to focus on making those tweaks mid-campaign. You don't have to wait till it's over and go, oh, this is what we learned, let's make those changes. You can learn on the fly and make things happen. So those 4 pillars, I would argue, are some key things that you need to focus on in your new post-digital marketing mix. So lastly, what can we do? Well, number one thing that I would say in whatever kind of marketing that you're doing, whether it's pre-digital, digital, post-digital, whatever you want to call it, is to not be selfish. Selfish people don't win. Selfish people, while being selfish is a human experience, selfishness is not something that customers want to see from you. And that goes all the way back to that boring slide that I showed at the beginning of the presentation. Don't be boring, because being boring, talking about yourself, is selfish. You want to create a conversation and do things that are selfless. And that's also that helpful, handy stuff as well. Number 2 is you want to creatively stand out. So, are you running just flat display advertisement? Is your social media presence just blah? Are you not sharing your brand voice? You want to think of new things that you can do to try to stand out as much as possible to your audience. And thankfully, you'll be able to test a lot of those things with the data that you're able to collect from your digital marketing. Number three, again, delivering that massive value. That was one of the pillars. You want to meet expectations, and if you can, exceed them. Luckily, if you're meeting customer expectations, they will be happy. If you exceed them, then they'll be ecstatic. And then the bar will actually just kind of continue to rise. But delivering that massive value anywhere you can across the buying decision will help you be more post-digital. And then you want to cultivate that user or human experience, whether that's on multiple channels, multiple devices, wherever you possibly can. You want to cultivate a user and human experience and really bring your brand to life by acting and behaving more human. And then lastly, guys, seriously, don't expect a purchase on the first click. I couldn't tell you how many people I have worked with where they were like, oh, we're going to run this great ad campaign. We're targeting our exact audience and it's going to be awesome. And then we hook it all up and it starts running. And they're like, wait a second, that we have so many thousands of clicks and our click-through rate is great. Why aren't people buying? Because they don't trust you yet. It takes time. You can't just expect to run an advertisement tomorrow. You could be selling bricks of gold for half price and people might still pause and go, I don't really trust that. Why is this gold half price or even free? I don't know about that. I'm not going to buy it. People still won't purchase it on the first click. So don't ever expect that. If you're getting purchases on the first click, oh my gosh, that's great. But usually they click, they bounce around, they come back to your website. You know how it goes. It takes time. That's why all of these other things need to happen in the background to be more post-digital, to be more human, to entice them to eventually trust and then buy. So that wraps up my content, but I would like for you guys to check out my book, which is The Marketing Starter. Again, you can scan this QR code or you go to tnhines.com/book to get more information. So go there and get a copy where you can learn how to take an entrepreneurial spirit and become a more savvy marketer. And with that, I will say thank you so much for the time. You can please follow me on all the social media at tnhines. Again, go to my website, tnhines.com, scan that QR code. It'll take you right there. And I look forward to connecting. And hey, thanks so much for taking the time to listen. And I really hope that you will take strides to be more post-digital in your marketing this coming year.